The sky over Millstone Town was the kind of pale gold that made the morning feel softer than it really was. People bustled along the sidewalks with coffee cups and half-awake expressions, but inside Hawthorne Auto and Repair, time had its own rhythm, slow, steady, honest. Tools clinked, engines hummed, and the faint smell of grease and warm metal drifted through the air. Jake Hawthorne lay half under the hood of the '79 Mustang he'd been restoring for months. He wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his wrist, leaving a dark smear of grease across his forehead. He didn't notice. He was too busy coaxing a stubborn bolt into loosening. He didn't hear the shop door open. He didn't notice the quiet footsteps. He didn't even see the woman standing a few feet away, watching him like she'd stumbled upon a scene she wasn't ready for. "Excuse me," she said, her voice soft but clear. Jake jerked upward, hitting his head on the hood with a muffled thunk. "Oh, yeah." He rolled out from under the car, rubbing the tender spot on his skull. She smiled apologetically. "Sorry, didn't mean to startle you." Jake blinked a few times. She looked different from the locals. Her clothes were simple, ripped jeans, a faded gray hoodie, sneakers. But everything about her posture, her calmness, felt out of place in this dusty town. Her hair was tied in a messy knot, strands falling around her face in a way that made her look effortlessly pretty. "What can I help you with?" he asked, trying not to stare. "My car won't start. It just died. I pulled over outside." She gestured vaguely toward the parking lot. "I was hoping you could take a look." Jake grabbed a clean rag and wiped his hands. "Sure thing. Let's go see what we're working with." Outside, a sleek black sedan, definitely not cheap, sat by the curb. Jake lifted the hood. She stood beside him, hands tucked into her pockets, watching him with curious eyes. He could feel her gaze. It made him oddly self-conscious. After a few minutes of checking connections, he glanced back at her. She was still staring. "Something on my face," he joked. She blinked as if caught. "Grease," she said lightly. "Here." She pointed to her own cheek, mimicking where the smudge was on him. Jake laughed, rubbing it off. "Comes with the job. Looks good on you," she said before she could stop herself. A strange warmth spread through Jake's chest. No one flirted with the mechanic. Not in this town. He returned to her car. "Your battery's dead. It's an easy fix. I can replace it in a few minutes. Please, I really need to get moving." There was a tension under her words, a hint of exhaustion she tried to hide. Jake worked quickly, hands moving with practiced confidence. When he shut the hood and turned back to her, she looked surprised. "That's it?" she asked. "That's it." He confirmed. "You're good to go. How much do I owe you?" He waved her off casually. "It's fine, fine." She frowned. "No, I want to pay." Jake shook his head. "You look like you're having a rough day. Just take this one as good luck or good timing." Her expression softened, more than he expected. Something vulnerable flickered behind her eyes, something tired and grateful. "You're kind," she said quietly. "People don't usually do things like that." Jake shrugged, suddenly shy. "I like helping people." She studied him for a long moment. There was something unreadable in her gaze, something almost searching. "Thanks," she whispered. He didn't know why, but the moment felt heavy, like there was something she wasn't telling him, and then he said it, without thinking, without planning. "If you ever need anything else, even just company for a bit, I'm around." She blinked in surprise. He almost regretted saying it, almost, but she didn't laugh it off. She didn't step back. Instead, she hesitated, chewing her lip, eyes darting over his face, then asked, "Actually, would you be my date for the weekend?" Jake stared, stunned. "You're what? My date?" she repeated. "Just for 2 days. I could use a break from everything." Everything. He had no idea what everything meant to her. Not yet. He chuckled nervously. "Well, yeah, sure, why not?" Behind her grateful smile, there was relief. Behind his casual acceptance there was curiosity, and behind both hearts there was a story neither of them saw coming. Jake expected a simple weekend, maybe a fair, a small concert, a picnic by the lake, something normal, something small town. But when Sarah pulled up in the rental sedan the next morning, wearing sunglasses and a soft smile that didn't quite hide her nerves, he immediately sensed something was different. "You ready?" she asked. "Born ready." He grinned, climbing into the passenger seat. They drove out of Millstone Town, past the grain fields and quiet diners, past familiar roads Jake had known his whole life. After an hour of driving, he finally asked, "So, where are we going?" "You'll see," she said, a hint of mischief in her voice. 2 hours later, the landscape changed. What had been simple countryside transformed into coastal views, cliffs, shimmering waves, and roads lined with palm trees. Jake watched the scenery with growing confusion. 3 hours in, they approached a gated entrance with gold-trimmed lettering and security guards dressed sharper than anyone Jake had ever seen. Seascape Royal Resort, private property. Jake blinked as the guards waved them through without checking anything. I think we're here," Sarah said, pulling into the valet circle. "Here looks like the kind of place that charges a month's rent for a bottle of water." Jake whispered as a valet in a crisp suit opened his door. Sarah only smiled. Inside the lobby, marble floors stretched like an ocean of polished stone. Chandeliers sparkled overhead. Exotic flowers perfumed the air. Jake stood frozen, feeling like a mechanic who accidentally walked into a fantasy. And then it got stranger. "Welcome back, Miss Sterling," the receptionist said with a warm, practiced smile. Jake's head snapped toward Sarah. Sterling as in Sterling Innovations, Sterling Enterprises, Sterling Tech Labs. The name hit him like a wrench to the skull. Sarah winced slightly, like she'd been caught. "Yes, thank you." They were escorted to a private suite overlooking the ocean, the kind with a balcony bigger than Jake's entire apartment. Jake didn't sit, he didn't walk, he just stared. "You okay?" Sarah asked gently. "You're Sarah, Sterling?" he asked slowly, turning to face her. She took off her sunglasses. Her eyes looked softer than before, almost apologetic. "I am." Jake let out a breath. The Sarah Sterling, the billionaire CEO who gets interviewed on morning shows, the woman who owns half the tech patents of the decade. She bit her lip. "Technically, yes." He rubbed his face. "And you asked me to be your date for the weekend." She stepped closer. "Jake, I didn't want to lie. I was just hoping to have one weekend where someone looked at me like a person, not a corporation, not a paycheck, just me." Jake sank onto the couch, mind spinning. He wasn't angry, just stunned. "So I'm not, like, your pretend boyfriend for this place, right?" he asked. She shook her head quickly. "No, I didn't bring you for that. I brought you because you were kind. You didn't treat me like you wanted something." Her voice wavered. "It's been a long time since I met someone who didn't expect me to fix their life." Jake swallowed hard. There was something lonely in her confession, something raw. He stood and walked to the balcony railing, letting the ocean breeze steady his thoughts. She joined him quietly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be," he said after a moment. "I just didn't expect this." He glanced at her. "But you're still the girl who walked into my shop yesterday, right?" Her breath caught. "I am." "Then I guess we're good." Her relief was visible, shoulders relaxing for the first time since they arrived. They spent the day exploring the resort, walking barefoot along the shoreline, their laughter mingling with the waves. Sarah showed him the hidden spots she used for escape. A quiet garden behind the spa, a lookout point that overlooked the whole coast. At one point, while they sat on the sand with the sun dipping low, Jake asked, "So all this, why bring me?" She hesitated. Because you made me feel normal, and because I guess I wanted to see if I could feel something real again. Jake turned toward her. And did you? She didn't answer immediately. She just smiled, soft and genuine, her eyes reflecting gold from the setting sun. Later that night over dinner, under soft lights and a warm breeze, she finally whispered, "This is the happiest I've been in a long time." Jake felt something shift inside him, something warm, something dangerous, and he had no idea she wasn't done surprising him yet. On the final morning, the sunlight spilled across the ocean in shimmering strips of silver and gold. The waves were calm, the breeze soft, yet Sarah stood on the balcony of the suite with her arms wrapped around herself, as if bracing for a storm only she could feel. Jake stepped outside quietly, sipping a cup of coffee. He noticed instantly that her smile was missing. "You okay?" he asked gently. She didn't turn. "I need to tell you something, the whole truth this time." He leaned against the railing beside her. "All right." Her fingers trembled slightly. "There's pressure on me right now, from my board, from my PR team. They want me to announce my engagement soon." Jake's heart dropped. It felt like the wind had been knocked out of him. "Engagement as in, you're getting married?" "No," she said quickly, shaking her head. "Not like that. It's not about love. They think a partnered CEO seems more stable, more appealing to investors. They care about optics, not people." He processed that slowly. The world she lived in suddenly made a painful sort of sense. Cold, calculating, engineered for image. "So you brought me here," he started, voice tight, "to pretend to be that partner?" "No." She stepped toward him, eyes wide and earnest. "No, Jake, I swear that's not why." The desperation in her voice stopped him. She looked terrified, more scared than she'd looked even the first day at the auto shop. "I brought you here," she said softly, "to remember what something real feels like, before I let myself get pushed into a life that's hollow." Jake swallowed. "But you didn't tell me, because I didn't know if I'd feel anything. I didn't know if you'd look at me the same way once you knew who I was." She ran a hand through her hair, pacing once across the balcony. "You made me laugh. You talked to me like a person. No filters, no careful words. You helped me without expecting anything. You were honest." Jake walked toward her slowly. "What did you feel, Sarah?" She stopped pacing, looked up at him with eyes that glistened in the sunlight. "I felt seen," she whispered, for the first time in years. Her confession hit him harder than anything she'd said so far. He reached out and gently took her hand. She didn't pull away. Her fingers curled into his like they belonged there. "Sarah," he said softly, "what do you want? Not your board, not your PR team, you." She looked down, breathing unsteadily. "I want someone who sees me for who I am, someone who doesn't see dollar signs, someone who makes me forget that my life is always on display." She looked up again, eyes vulnerable. "I want what I felt with you." Jake stepped closer. "And what did you feel?" Her lips parted, voice barely more than a breath. "Hope." For a moment, they simply stood there, two people from entirely different worlds, caught in a silence that felt fragile and sacred. The ocean murmured below them. Jake brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Listen, I'm not great at faking anything. If I care, I care. If I don't, I don't. But with you," she blinked, waiting. "With you, I feel something real too." Her breath caught. "But I'm not going to be some prop to make investors happy." He added gently, "If I'm in your life, it's for real, no pretending." A tear escaped down her cheek. She nodded once. "I don't want pretending. I want you, just you." Jake smiled softly and wiped the tear with his thumb. "You've got me." She closed the distance and hugged him, tight, warm, holding on like she'd been carrying the weight of the world, and finally found a place to rest. Jake wrapped his arms around her, feeling her shake with relief. When they pulled apart, she laughed through the last of her tears. "So, does this mean you'll go on a real date with me, not a weekend escape?" Jake chuckled. "Yeah, I'd love that." They packed, checked out, and left the marble floors and chandeliers behind. The road back to Millstone felt lighter. At a gas station stop, Sarah insisted on paying. Jake insisted she let him drive. They teased each other the whole way home, their shoulders brushing, their hands occasionally finding each other. By the time they reached town, there was no billionaire CEO and no small town mechanic, just Sarah and Jake. A woman who wanted to be seen, a man who finally saw her, and a story neither of them ever expected to write.